about Shadow Shaper, and then we'll talk middle grade because I know what podcast this is. But I've got you here. It's so cool to be able to talk to you about a series that I enjoyed so very much. I noticed that all the words that are in Spanish throughout the story, there's a lot of Spanish words, are not in italics. And you've got a video in which you discuss that, a short video that I absolutely love. So I'm really just hoping that you'll reiterate what is the reason that those Spanish words are not in italics?
Oh, yeah. Well, the main idea behind that, thank you, by the way, is it's about kind of understanding the way that bilingual people talk. I mean, I think that's the best way to really look at it. And language is really meant to help for clarity and readability and understanding. And when you italicize a word, what you do is point out how different and important it is and make it jump out, really make it like do something different. And when bilingual people speak in both languages, they don't emphasize the change in language. So it reads really false to have an emphasis with a different language when really what there is flow. And what italics do is destroy that flow very specifically. So to me, it just feels really cheap and kind of othering to follow this really archaic rule when the truth about language is that it's always growing and changing based on how the world really works. You know, language is an imperfect art, and it's in constant motion. It's very fluid, and that's what I love about it. You know, so it seems really clear that there's no reason to italicize. Now there are times when italics are important, like if you're emphasizing, you know, a word, or if someone doesn't speak the language well, it's going to sound different, and it will sound emphasized somehow if they're switching back and forth. But for bilingual characters speaking, you know, Spanish, and that's not to mention that we have this very corrupt idea of language as something that can be a perfect thing, right? When the reality is that all language is a big hodgepodge of lots of different elements thrown in. There's so many Spanish words in English and vice versa, and all kinds of other things. And that's what language is. It's something that comes with fully packed bags. And so it gets sort of ridiculous when does a word fully become English? And then, you know, that is a fluid thing into itself. So if we can agree that language is fluid, then why would we stick to some rule that makes things really unreadable to me anyway?
I know you're a big believer in when you're drafting, when you're getting that first draft on paper, just get it down, get the story out there.
Yeah.
At what point do you start obsessing over and refining your language? Because your books are beautifully written. So I know at some point you come back in there and you polish and fine tune pretty hardcore. What does that process look like for you?
I do try to read all my books out loud before I send them. I don't always have a chance to do that, and that's the way of the beast. But that is something I recommend to everybody, is that you read out loud. Or if you have someone, you know, handy that can read it out loud to you, that's also really helpful. But at the end of the day, it's a sonic art form. And we don't always understand it that way, because when you read, you often read silently, but you're still hearing the words in your head. And ultimately, the sound of the words does matter incredibly to whether or not writing works. And so if we understand that to be true, you know, that's how you know that you really do have to hear it one way or another.